yeah, again, we're going to start with a short recap of this e-learning session as a total. So by now we have had the platform introduction last week or the week before, and talked in depth about the toolchain and the different calculation modules within the heat planning and the district cooling aspects. And then we had this Q&A session last week. Yeah, the two first sessions you can also find as recordings to see, again, if you want to dive into those aspects, you can rewatch them and see where the developers clicked to see how to adjust those parameters and so on that have been discussed and presented in the exercises also. The agenda for today is very much similar to those that we had already for the other modules. We're going to start with the same welcome again to wrap up the project and so on, and the background for those that may not have seen the other webinars or the other modules and are just interested in this e-mobility part. So we're going to also talk about that today. And then Noemi Jeannin from EPFL in Switzerland is going to present her developments to the Citiwatts tool, talking about the calculation module, the background for developing it, the data available in it, and the module that was prepared, or the two modules that were calculation modules that were prepared. And then also going to show some exercises again to basically show our take on how you can use those calculation modules. But of course, you can also do it for any other way that you could imagine for your local context and so on. And in the end, there's again going to be some time for Q&A. The team is basically still the same, so if you want to reach out to us, there's the first row basically with us organizing the e-learning, and then we have always these technical experts for the different parts of it also. And here today it's Noemi that is representing EPFL and her developments in the calculation modules. Just a quick administrative remark in the beginning is that you have received links to the Google Classroom, and still if you want to see the exercises and get the links to the recordings and so on, please refer to the Google Classroom that has been prepared for this. If you have any issues reaching it, please reach out to us and we can help you. But those would be the links, and they have also been distributed in the emails. About the project, again, most of you have seen this, I suppose, in the other webinars, but we are working in Citiwatts, which is the further development from the hot maps tool, which was developed in a Horizon project, Horizon 2020 that is, and now we have worked in this SES ERANET project to, well, basically further improve what has been developed already in hot maps, and also to add some new functionalities, which today is basically one of those new developments. So what we've been doing is to adjust what has already been in the tool, but then further improving it for the heating part. Then we have also added something about the district cooling aspect as described in the module 2. And then there was only very, very basic approaches to mobility and e-mobility, especially in hot maps. This has been improved quite intensively, which Noemi is going to present for you in a second. And then there's also this tool for flexibilities and other energy system aspects, which is going to be presented tomorrow in the 5th module. And then overall, the platform has also been improved further on, so increasing the usability, addressing some user experience issues, and the pure technical improvement of it. And within the technology readiness level framework, we moved from TRL 7 in the already existing features to TRL 8 for both the existing and the new developments. The components that the whole project, or the products that have been prepared in the project compile of is that we have the platform, which is the one that we are also going to present today. So this is the platform where you both have access to some data sets that have been either gathered here or developed for this. But there's also calculation modules, so basically calculators to work on top of those data. And you can also use them with your own data. So you can upload your own data and then calculate with that instead of using the default available. A little curiosity, which I didn't address before, sorry, but that is that Citiwatts is the tool, while OpenGS for ET is the project that has been developed in. if you wonder about that. Yeah, then we have also on the side some standalone tools. You can, for one, take the whole development in its Python code and then run it yourself on your local machine. Yeah, that's one option, but we have also developed some Excel tools on the side to basically take those calculation modules in the tool and yeah, frame them, you could say. But we're going to present one of those approaches today also. Then there's the wiki to document it all, and then we have the demonstration and training and dissemination activities, and this e-learning session is obviously a part of that. As for the content regarding the calculation modules and the data, we have tried to describe this in this slide, which you may also have seen in the other webinars already, but that's just to say that, well, we have some default data and quite a bit actually of default data in the tool, which is one deliverable, one product by itself, you could say, and then we have all these calculation modules, and that's just to say that we have very much on the heating side, because that was basically the core of the product or of the project, and that has been also elaborated now with the cooling assessment tool. And then we have these new features which was not included in the original hot maps part, where we also look into these flexibility aspects and the mobility as described today. Well, all these different calculation modules as listed just before, they basically run independently of each other. And well, while they do great calculations, they only create as much value as you let them, basically. So if you want to make some consistent scenarios and work like across the pure framework of a given calculation module, you have to chain them in a way, so you can use in many cases the outputs of one calculation module as input for the next, or another at least. There's no fixed chain basically, but what we have tried for each of these modules to give you what we call the tool chain or workflow of one take on how you can chain these different components for them to make more sense or give more value for your analysis. And this would be the tool chain that we want to present today, which is also what the exercises are about today. So the two calculation modules that we are presenting, or that Noemi will demonstrate in a second and has prepared the exercises for, is the CM on electric vehicle densities, and then the CM, the calculation module on charging demands. And so what we're basically doing here is to well, obviously find the density of electric vehicles based on the assumptions that are going to be presented to you, which gives you a layer that shows this density, and then this layer you can use as input file for the charging demands. So obviously your charging demand is going to correlate to the amount and density of electric vehicles, and this is basically a one-step or a two-step approach, starting with this one and then going over to the other one. Yeah, then we have also these other slides, these other factors that you may need to consider in the modeling. So there is a layer called the motorization layer, which Noemi, I'm sure, also will present to you and elaborate on what that covers. And then you need to have some input parameters also and adjust those for this calculation module to, well, make sense. And the same goes for the other one. So you always need to also have a little bit analysis on your own, yeah, and consider how to chain this or how to structure these inputs. And then we again have this scenario assessment Excel spreadsheet, which well, he is called the same. It's a totally different spreadsheet than the one we used for the heating and cooling toolchain, but the concept is basically the same. So we still work with a coloring, coding, and so on. And the concept is still that, well, we have these calculation modules as the calculation engine in the toolbox, and then for them to make sense in your analysis locally, and then you can also use it for your own analysis and so on. We refer to Excel to basically gather and compile those different aspects. One link more, which is also in these slides here, is the dotted lines out to the CM energy plan. And that is because there are some quite obvious links between those modules that have been developed for the mobility aspect and into the energy system analysis tool, which is going to be presented in the module tomorrow about the energy flexibility and energy plan. and we have chosen to highlight this as either a core link, you could say, so with the same background color. Actually, I'm a little bit uncertain right now. Noemi, will you present this one also? No,
No.
I think it's a mistake in the background color then. But you can either use the basic output from this calculation module and use an energy plan, or you can also take the more advanced one with the charging demands also, and then chain it like that. But if it's started, it's generally not something that we're going to demonstrate today. It's more for inspiration on how to calculate more than what has been presented in the exercises today. Yeah, regarding the platform, the link should be familiar by now, but here it is once more. So this is the link to the toolbox itself, browser-based everything, and it's generally recommended to use Edge, but we also know that it works quite fine in both Chrome and Firefox at least. Yeah, but the one that we have been asked to support was Edge, basically. That's what the developers also refer to. Fine. Last but not least, from my side, is that some of the features that are demonstrated and will be used in the exercises demand you to have a user created, because once you log into the tool, you have some more possibilities. For instance, to export, to save your calculations and export them in a different way, and especially to have the upload function. So please, if you have not done so yet, please create a user. Yeah, and that would be it from my side. And now Noemi will guide us through the developments that have been done for the mobility and the exercises for today.
So hello everyone, and thank you for attending this meeting. I will share my screen. Okay, so I will start with the explanation about the mobility CMs. So the idea behind this CM is to study electric vehicle development and potential coupling with photovoltaic electricity. So as you can see on the left-hand side diagram, the two main sources of emissions of CO2 in Europe in 2022 were energy supply and domestic transportation. So electric vehicles are the main solution to decarbonize private road transportation, but they increase the demand for electricity. And this electricity would be better if it's decarbonized. So one solution to decarbonize the electricity production is to use photovoltaic electricity, but it requires storage. So one of the ideas behind these calculation modules is to know how we could use electric vehicles as storage for photovoltaic production, and use photovoltaic production to supply additional demand for electric vehicle charging. So the objectives of both CMs are to quantify the electrification of the vehicle fleet, quantify the mobility needs to estimate the electric vehicle charging needs, and then develop scenarios for charging at different locations, so at home, at work, and point of interest, to obtain load curves of electric vehicle charging depending on the scenarios, and maps of the charging needs also depending on the scenarios, to estimate the CO2 emission reduction. I will now briefly present the approach that we had. So the methodology starts by the population layer. And then we have first the CM of electric vehicle density that estimates the electrification of the mobility through the time. And also layers of vehicle kilometer traveled from the cars depending on mobility habits. And for that, we have two models, the gravity model and iso distance, that I will explain later. And from both of that, the CM for electric vehicle charging needs estimates the charging needs. And you can, in this CM, implement scenarios of charging between home, work, point of interest, and remote work. And it produces charging curves and maps. that you can then compare to the solar potential to have potential coupling between PV and EV and also CO2 emission reductions. If you're interested to know more about the scientific models behind that, you can have a look at the wiki and at the publications. Okay, so now it's time for a demonstration of the tool. So here is the Citiwatts platform that maybe you recognize. I'm using NUTS 2 level, and I selected the area around the Offenbach. I will first show you briefly the layers available for mobility. So as I explained earlier, the base layer is the population. Here you have three choices: population from 2012, 2020, and 2030. And you have then mobility layers with motorization rates, which is the ratio of car for 1,000 inhabitants by NUTS 2. You have also a default layer for electric vehicle density for 2050. You have layer of the charging station density. It's the blue points that you see here. Layer of ISO distances for the model with ISO distances. This is basically the driven distance by car to center of the cities. A layer for transborder commuters. A layer with the density of workplaces. A layer with density of points of interest. It's written in the wiki what are the points of interest taken into account, but mostly is everything that you could consider as potential places that are interesting for public. So it could be restaurants, shops, theaters, these kind of things. And the last layer is vehicle kilometer traveled from the gravity model. Okay, so let's start with the calculation module with the electric vehicle density. I will call this calculation tutorial. And then the first parameter to choose is if we want to use a custom motorization rate or the default one available for the layer. For this demonstration, I will use the one available from the layer, but of course, if you have more precise value, don't hesitate to click here and input your more precise values. Then you have a parameter to adjust the motorization rates between area with higher population density, such as cities, and rural areas. For now, I will not use that, but it's possible. Then you can choose a projection year from 2022, so now it's in the past, to 2050. So for this example, I will choose 2050. And then the three last parameters are maybe a bit less straightforward. The first one is the fleet renewal share, and it's here 6%, but you can obtain it by calculating the ratio between the new car registered in the fleet and the total amount of car of the area. The next one is the electric vehicle share in 2020. This will be the base of how many vehicles electric are already in the fleet. The default value is 6%, but for this area is a bit too much, so I will use 1%. And finally, the share of electric cars in the new registration in 2020. This is also the basic information to know how many electric vehicles were in 2020. And then the calculation module will compute the evolution of the new car that are electric up to 100% in 2035. Here you can choose the population data from several years. As we are projecting it to 2050, I will choose the projection from 2030. For this parameter, it's better to use the population data that are the closer of the year that you want to obtain results at. And I keep the motorization rate as the default value. So then I run the calculation module. And we have two kinds of outputs. So one output is the total number of electric vehicles in 2050. And the other one is the share of electric vehicles in the fleet. Here we can see that the fleet will be fully electrified. And the second kind of output is a map of the electric vehicle density by hectare here. So if you want to save those values for later, so if you want to keep it after you close the window, you can export here the indicator, and you will have CSV file with the values. And you can find the results layer of electric vehicle density at the end of your layer panel here. And from here, you can also download the results so that you can reuse it later. Now I will re-upload the layer that I just saved. This one as electric vehicle density. Okay. To be able to use it for the other CM. Do you have question until now? Okay, so I will continue to the other calculation module.
There's been a question in the chat, Noemi.
Could you read it because I cannot see the chat?
Yeah, Lee asks, may I know if the color layer currently shown on the map is a raster or a vector layer, and what does it represent? So maybe elaborate on the results that have been run now.
So you have the legend here. It's a raster layer with a precision that is the same as the population density. So here it's 1 hectare. And on the bluish part, the electric vehicle density is less, so less than 50 electric vehicle density per hectare. And on the area that are more red is up to here, I would say it's between 200 electric vehicle per hectare. Does it answer the question?
Seems so, yeah. And the density obviously follows, I mean, you've been across these input parameters, but it follows the population map, basically. Yes. So that's why it also follows the urban structure.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I will continue to the other CM, which is electric vehicle charging needs. That I will also call tutorial. So in this calculation module, the idea is to make scenarios of charging behavior of the population. So you can choose if you want to implement smart charging at home. For example, here I will click yes. And then you need to choose the share of commuters that will charge at different locations. So for example, here at work, 10%. Share of commuters that charge when they work from home, we can put 20%. Share of commuters that charge at point of interest, maybe also 20%. And then you have a few more parameters to create solar production scenarios. Here, I will choose, for example, 10% of the building footprint covered by solar panels, with 20% of efficiency and a performance ratio of 80%. And now the next parameter is to estimate the CO2 intensity of the electricity mix. This is used to estimate the CO2 footprint of electric vehicles. For that values, I put it in the slide, but I like to use this website to have real-time CO2 intensity of countries. You can see that when I prepared the slide, it was around 400 grams per kilowatt hour, and now it's 262 in Germany. So you can choose to put the values from now to have an estimation if the CO2 intensity of the electricity mix will not change, or you can choose to use an estimated value of the CO2 intensity of the electricity mix in the future. It's up to you. And here the last data parameters is the electric vehicle share. Here I would advise to use the one that was output of the previous CM. So for us, it was 100%. And to finish with the parameters, we have to choose a model. There are two models available for Central Europe. The one that is performing the best is the gravity model. But on some places, if the municipalities are too far from each other, it's not working very well. So in those cases, for example, north of Europe, so Denmark, Sweden, it's better to use the other model. And now we will use the gravity one. So we also have to select the layer corresponding to this model here. I will not detail further the other layers, but if you have questions afterwards, don't hesitate. And we run the calculation modules. Do you have questions so far? Okay, so now we have three kinds of outputs. We have the charging needs per location for the whole area that we selected here. So at home, during home office, at workplace, at point of interest. We have also the charging needs total for a weekday. The number of cars charging in the area. This was calculated from the previous CM. An average distance driven by the car per day. Also value for the weekend and the potential solar production. The total CO2 emission for all the car driving in the area. Here we see again that we input the parameter of 100% electric car and the reduction of the CO2 emission compared to the 100% oil-based fleets. which are 52%. The second kind of output is load curve from the electric vehicle charging for a weekday. And the third kind of output is the layer of the charge needs per hectare again. And here, so we can find it here at the end of the layers. Here you have a light color for smaller needs and dark color for higher needs. And you can see that with our scenarios, the demands are more concentrated on the city centers. Okay, so that's it for the demonstration. If you have any question, don't hesitate to ask. And now I will present the exercises that we prepared. So the first exercise is aimed at using the first calculation module on the electric vehicle density. So first you have to select the area and open the calculation module. And then define the station name and the parameters for the motorization rates that I presented. For this exercise, we have chosen to use most of the default values, except for the electric vehicle share, which is a bit different from the default values in Germany. We also use the population from 2030.
There is a question in the chat, and also someone raised the hand.
Yes, please.
So I think it refers to your last sample run. How does this considers the fact that lots of people will need to charge their car during the day at their workplace that can be different from the place where they live?
Maybe I will use a slide for the second exercise for that. Or I will show it directly here. So to know where people are charging at their workplace, we use this layer. It was created by making requests on OpenStreetMaps of places that were labeled with tags corresponding to workplaces. So it could be buildings with the tag office. It could be industry buildings, also banks, public office, this kind of things, universities, hospitals, for example. And the calculation module will dispatch the demand of the people charging at work among those locations, depending of how many buildings with the tag corresponding to an office there are in one pixel. And that's how we model where people are charging. Is it clear?
Yes, seems so.
Okay.
Thanks.
Nice. So then it's explain how to save the values and upload it to a personal layer to reuse it later in the other CM. And in the exercise 2, The aim is to calculate the charging demands at various locations and obtain the density map of the charging needs. So for that, once again, you have to select an area of interest and to create charging scenarios. Here you have an example of charging scenarios that we use, but of course you're welcome to create as many scenarios as you find interesting and to compare the results of each scenarios with each other. Be careful maybe at choosing the right layer from the mobility model that you selected. So if you select gravity, please select the VKT from gravity model, and if you select isodistance, please select the isodistance layer. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee that you will have meaningful results. And from the electric vehicle density, here you can choose the layer that you calculated at the previous with the previous calculation module, and then run it. And you will have, as I explained, here the aggregated values, the map, and the charging load curves in time. And maybe before the question, I will show you the scenario assessment Excel. So as an example of results here, we have several scenarios. If you've attended the previous session, you may be familiar with it. So different parameter here, the results here of the scenarios in yellow. And from that, you can extract diagram of the charging load curves with the different scenarios. And here you can compare it with an example of solar production in July and in January. And here you can see the amount of charging that occurs at different locations for different scenarios, so at home, at point of interest, and at work. And do you have questions?
While maybe people are thinking of questions or typing the questions, Noemi, I would maybe think it would be good to elaborate a bit on the gravity or isodistance approach. So why to select the one or the other? You mentioned the regional aspect of the gravity model, but maybe elaborate a little bit on the differences between the two and what they actually stand for.
Yes. So the gravity model is a calculation based on the attractivity of a municipality from the point of view of another one. So here for Offenbach, for example, the gravity model will consider all the municipalities that are within 45 kilometers from Offenbach, and the attractivity is calculated by the ratio of their population over the distance from Offenbach to this city with the calibration parameters. And so based on the attractivity of all the cities within the radius of 45 kilometers from Offenbach, the model will dispatch the commuters to the other cities. So this model is working well if cities are not too far from each other, and if the Law 2 region is not too big. So as you can see here on the map, it's working well in Germany, Switzerland, in France, but sometimes it's not working so well on area where there are mainly forests, and it's not working very well on north of Europe because cities are further from each other and the Law 2 region are bigger. So for that area, I would advise to use rather the ISO distance model, which is a model that estimates the driven distance by the car from the distance to city centers. So if they are closer to city centers, the driving distance will be smaller, and if they are far from city centers, the driven distance will be higher. Is it more helpful to know how to choose a model?
I would think so, at least, yeah. Thank you. We have another question in the chat that is, how was the traveling demand assumed?
So that's what I explained with the true model. So we have those two models to estimate the commuting distance. And then inside of the calculation module, on the top of the estimation of the driven distance by the model, you can choose additional distance for shopping and for hobbies, because the scientific models that we use are large-scale mobility models that were used in the literature for commuting. So on the top of that, we have to use additional values for shopping and leisure that you can also adjust here depending on the information that you have on, for example, mobility survey.
I think that was a good remark on the service. Yes, thank you. Any other questions or requests from the participants? Lee is asking if you may have access to the previous tutorials from Google Classroom. Yes, you may very well. If you have not access to the Google Classroom, that's what I take from your question, then let us have a look at it, why you don't. But I would not do that with the entire class now, so we're just going to do that after the recording. Follow up with you. And as said, if anyone else has issues connecting to the Google Classroom, then please let us know, and I'm sure we can figure out how to grant you access. But the link that has been shared in the email should be open for everyone. You just need a Google account to log into it. Yeah, that's a classic remark, I would say. It's that Google services from the computer at work may be an issue, and that's unfortunately something that we have seen. yeah, we will make it available. And maybe you should also reconsider, because the links are on, or the recordings are on YouTube anyways. We can also share them directly. The main thought of the classroom was basically to have it all gathered at one place, so you can find it as at a register basically. But yeah, we can of course share the recording with you more directly from YouTube, or you are of course free to find our channel on YouTube also for this. If there are no more questions, and I'm trying to take a little time here, but it doesn't seem like there's more typing right now going on. If there's no more questions, I would actually finish the session then, and give a little outlook on what's coming up next. For that, it would be obvious to share, of course. Give me 1 second. Just need to find the right window again. There we go. So now we've been talking about the charging demands and the electric vehicles today, and then tomorrow, as said, we're gonna have a similar session on a whole different topic, and not that different anyways, because it's about the flexibility in a simplified energy system analysis. Yeah, so actually also assessing what shares of electric vehicles can do for the overall flexibility of the electricity system. So that's basically where we try to chain these things together, as said. Yeah, and then other than that, on Thursday, there's going to be a session where we again have all the different developers from the different modules gathered for you to ask questions about the different topics. The idea is, of course, that by then you have had hopefully a chance to look into these different tools, and yeah, have got gained some insights, and yeah, want to maybe challenge some of the approaches or ask more about the details of it. That was the idea of the Q&A session with the developers in the session again, and that's this Thursday, as said. Other than that, there'll be a second chance for basically the same approach in May, because we will repeat this e-learning modules in German also. And as the developers are only speaking English or other languages, but not supported by the rest of us, yeah, we're gonna gather that with the German participants. But yeah, you're of course welcome to also share, join then, if you, in the time between April 10th and May 16th, come up with other questions to get answers on. Well, that's basically what we brought for you today. And I don't see any more questions that we have not addressed in the chat.